In this video lecture, we'll be talking about types of settlements based on size. In earlier sessions, we had talked about types of settlements based on culture and based on the stages of growth and decay. In this session, we'll be talking about how settlements are classified on the basis of size. Now, there are three initial classifications. The first three type of settlements based on size are associated with rural settlements, and the fourth one and all those classific types after that are associated with urban settlements. So as far as size is concerned, the first type of settlements that we'll be talking about is isolated settlement. As the name itself suggests, that isolated settlements are the settlements having a very small population and a very few number of houses, hardly one or two. And these are the settlements or the houses which are usually built at a distance from the other settlements. And so, because the other larger settlements are located away from it, these smaller settlements of very less population and very few houses are like isolated from the rest of the settlements, and so they are called as isolated settlements. Usually farmers wishes to live on his own land or a farmland than living in a distant village, and therefore we find that in a huge expanse of an agricultural farm, we find one house where the farmer's family is living, so that house becomes like an isolated house from rest of the settlement. Many farmlands in Western United States or Canada are examples of such isolated settlements. In India, such settlements are found in mountainous regions of the Himalayas, of the Western Ghats, and the Thar Desert, etc. These are just few images to talk about. I mean, you will not find anything else nearby. You just find one house or a few houses, couple of houses in such settlement. The next one is hamlet. Now, as we'll proceed from one type of settlement to the next, when in terms of size, okay, we'll find that the population will increase, the number of houses also will increase, because here we are talking about types of settlement based on size. So hamlets are usually found in remote areas where the population is less, but it is not as less as the population in isolated settlements. So isolated settlements have much less population compared to hamlets. So the population in the hamlets can be anywhere between 20 to 200. These are very rough and very generalized figures, right? What we should remember is that hamlets are bigger than isolated huts or an isolated settlement, right? In terms of population size and in also terms of number of houses. Now, because the population is little more, okay, we find some additional services. So we find church or a shop or maybe a post office in such hamlets, which will be serving that particular hamlet or a group of hamlets nearby. In India, we refer to, and especially in Maharashtra, we refer to such hamlets as wadis or pada. Such wadis or padas or such hamlets are located in eastern parts of Ganga Ghagra Doab, southern parts of Trans Ghagra Plains, and many Vindhyan uplands. These are just examples. There are different parts of the country where such rural settlements or hamlets are located. Again, these are examples. So you can see that there is no just one house. So we can see that there are more number of houses, especially in this image, right? So this is not a large village also, but this is also not an isolated settlement. Something located in between, that is a hamlet. The next classification is a village. So village is larger than isolated settlement and hamlet. It's a very typical form of a rural settlement. It does contain a large number of houses, farms, also public buildings such as religious center, a religious monument such as mosque or a church or a temple or a village hall, or it may have more than one shops, post office, most probably villages will have. Now, such villages or large or small villages, they occupy floodplains, river banks, natural levees, hill slopes, valley bottoms, or piedmont areas, spurs, and coastal lands are the very typical physical locations where we find the development of villages. Again, villages are there all in different parts of the country, all over, but the number of villages are much more in states like Uttar Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Orissa, and Rajasthan. Village can be sub-classified into small village and large village, again on the basis of population. When we say small village, usually a village ranging between 200 to 2000 of population, while the large village is the one that in general the population of which ranges between 2000 to 5000. Now, large villages have additional characteristics. That large village has is also a site of a weekly market. Please note that this population ranges that I am giving, these are very general, raw kind of figures, just to remember the fact that there is a size difference between these type of settlements. So isolated settlements have much less population, much very less number of houses. Hamlets has a little more population and higher number of houses as compared to isolated settlements, while villages, a village is the is the biggest rural settlement in that category, and then still we can subdivide it into small village and large village. Now, another point should be noted that in different countries, there are different figures, there are different definitions of or different criteria used for how much population will qualify for calling that settlement as rural or urban. So, a particular population may qualify a settlement to be urban in one country, but a similar settlement with a similar number of people in other country may still be considered as rural. So there are a lot of variations. As there are variations country to country, the criteria what is rural and urban changes in terms of the number of people, in terms of the occupational composition of the people or the population densities, etc. In this presentation, what we are referring to is largely what is considered as rural or urban in India. So till now we talked about three types: isolated settlements, hamlet, and village. These three types are the types of rural settlements based on size. The fourth type that we'll move into is called the towns. Now, towns is the first category or a first type of settlement in urban category. So now here rural has ended. Now a village grows and becomes a town. So isolated settlement grows to become a hamlet. Hamlet grows or expands further to become a village, and village further expands to become a town. So from this particular category, we find that the urban classification begins. So town is the smallest unit of urban settlements. It has got population of more than 5,000. Towns usually have a mixed characters. Towns with a lesser population relatively has a mixed character. It displays or it exhibits some rural characters as well as some urban characters. If you remember our discussion on the concept of rural and urban settlements, we have talked about it, that the settlements do exhibit a mix of rural and urban characters, and towns are the specific examples of the same. Now, towns also can be viewed in different ways or in different kinds. The first one of them is statutory towns. I want to note that you should note that all these classifications I'm talking about is only with regards to India. So statutory towns basically are the towns which are notified under statutes or notified under law by the concerned state or union territory government. Such statutory towns, obviously central government as well. Statutory towns have local bodies like municipal corporations, municipalities, municipal committees, etc., irrespective of their demographic characteristics. So irrespective of how many people are there in that settlement or what is the number of houses in that settlement, a statute designates or statute declares that particular settlement as a town. And once a settlement is declared as a town, it becomes a part of the urban. As per 2011 census, India has about 4,041 statutory towns. Obviously, we are in 2022. We are waiting for 2021 census to begin. So obviously, the number of statutory towns might have increased, but we'll go by the 2011 census figures. There are innumerable examples that can be given, but for the purpose of mentioning in your examination, you can mention Vadodara Municipal Corporation, Shimla Municipal Corporation as examples, and any other municipal corporations that you know where you stay also can be cited. So the images are shown. Now, if you compare these images with the earlier images of rural settlement types that we talked about, you can very much see the density. The houses are so close to each other, the compactness of a settlement, and obviously quantitatively very large number of houses and buildings as well. So these are typical towns. Another interesting fact of this particular image is that where you can see a buildings also, and you can see also houses with slanting roofs. So a very typical image, a very typical site of a town where you can see a rural and urban mix in such settlements. The next kind of town that we can talk about are census towns. Census towns are basically the towns that become urban or that is considered as urban based on the demographic characteristic. And there are different kinds of, there are different demographic conditions or characteristics which are laid down by the census. For example, the minimum population of such town should be 5,000 persons, or 75% or more male working population should be engaged in non-agricultural activities, or the minimum population density should be 400 persons square kilometer. We have seen this particular part when we were talking about the concept of urban settlements in our earlier videos. So these are the same conditions or the criteria as we are talking about taken from the census notification of 2021. So a settlement which has got more than 5,000 persons or more than 5,000 population, or a settlement in which 75% or more than that main working population is engaged in non-agricultural activities, or a settlement having minimum population density of 400 persons per square kilometer is considered as a census town. As per 2011 census, India has 3,894 census towns in India. Most of the census towns, especially of lower orders in terms of population, are engaged in low-scale manufacturing and trade. Because one of the conditions that we talked about is that such settlements are engaged in non-agricultural activities. So, urban areas are the settlements are the ones where most of the people are engaged in secondary or tertiary activities. So, accordingly, the same is applied to census towns as well. These census towns are further divided into 6 categories based on different ranges of population as class 1 towns, class 2 towns, class 3, class 4, class 5 and class 6 towns. And they have different population ranges, right? So accordingly, according to the population of that particular settlement, we classify the settlement into from class 1 to class 6 towns. What is city in India? So now after town, we are talking about the next type of settlement, and that is city. Now city is nothing but a town with a population of 1 lakh or more than that. Right? And such towns or such cities are also referred as class 1 towns because they have a population more than 1 lakh, right? And these are obviously more populous compared to the rest of the towns, functionally more diverse. So they are not involved only in manufacturing, but they are involved in number of other secondary activities as well as tertiary activities, such as massive manufacturing, retail and wholesale trade, very well developed transport activities, administrative services also, or education and health services are also present in cities. The next type of urban settlement is called as metropolis. Metropolis are the cities having population more than a million. So these are also called as the million plus cities. These are very large cities in terms of population, in terms of geographical area, in terms of number of houses, and also in terms of hinterland. Hinterland is the area of influence. So a city or here in this case metropolis exerts its influence around a vast area which we call as hinterland. So such hinterland may include small towns, large towns in the surrounding regions. And in India, as per again the 2011 census, we have 53 metropolitan cities. So this is a very typical image of a metropolitan city. Now you will find that the rural connection or the rural connection gradually disappears and urban takes over rural in such areas. But at the same time, especially in case of the developing countries, we do find that such metropolises, such huge settlements are also the settlement that showcase unevenness or class differentiation. So where on one side you find skyscrapers and tall buildings and huge residential complexes and manufacturing industries, etc., we also find mass scale or large scale slumming of the settlement. So in this image, you can see a huge area covered by slums, but on the other side or on the background of the photograph, you can also find that the city has a very large, tall buildings and very dense construction on this side. So this unevenness is a very typical aspect of a metropolis. Again, these are few examples of metropolis in India. The top 10 are given here in terms of population as per 2011 data. So Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Ahmedabad, Chennai, Kolkata, etc. So these are examples of the metropolitan cities. The next classification is called as UA or urban agglomeration. Now, urban agglomeration is nothing but agglomeration. So where you find more than one town, okay, are mixed together, or you can find one town, more number of towns located continuously in a continuous region or an area. So such continuous urban spread comprising of more than one town is called as urban agglomeration. So obviously urban agglomeration has at least one statutory town. It also it includes the adjoining outgrowth. So the old town, when its population increases, it starts growing outwards or expanding outwards. Such outgrowths of the towns are also included in urban agglomeration. Similarly, as I am mentioning, that other than that one statutory town, more than one towns which are located in the physically contiguous regions around are also included in urban agglomeration. So urban agglomeration basically contains minimum one statutory town, the outgrowth of that statutory town, and then couple of more towns which are located in the same region in a physically contiguous region, right? Now, it may include the outgrowths of those two towns, or it may not include, depending upon how the urban agglomeration is defined by the concerned authority. Now, if such urban agglomeration is developed around a metropolis, so if there is a metropolis at the center around which the urban agglomeration has developed, then we call it as a metropolitan region. But metropolitan region basically is a planning region, and therefore the boundary of the metropolitan region is determined by the planning authorities and the concerned government authorities. As per Census 2011, India has got 475 urban agglomerations. Greater Mumbai urban agglomeration or Delhi urban agglomeration are some of the examples. This is a map of an MMR or Mumbai metropolitan region. So you can see on this side, on this particular map, where you can see the western Maharashtra districts of or the districts from Konkan region, Palghar, Thane, Raigad, etc. And you can see this black line, which is a boundary of a metropolitan region. So metropolitan region is not just one city, so it includes Mumbai, but around Mumbai it also includes a very large area that contains many towns and many cities, but which are located as a physically contiguous zone. So they are called as a metropolitan region. It's a kind of a urban agglomeration. However, the fixing of this boundary or the delineation and demarcation of this boundary is a job of planning authorities, and because metropolitan region is basically a planning region. There is another concept under urban agglomeration that can be mentioned, and it is conurbation. It's a term coined by Sir Patrick Geddes in 1915. Conurbation is a region which includes several metropolises. So conurbation is where there are more number of metropolises, or more than one metropolises, or more number of cities coming together. So this merging of urban settlements, large urban settlements, takes place because of extreme population concentration, urban spread, and also, I mean, the physical expansion or the urban spread of that particular settlement. The exact number of conurbations in India is difficult to get, but we largely believe that there are more than 60 conurbations in India. However, in current urban settlement geography, this particular concept of conurbation is slightly outdated. So now we more talk about the metropolitan regions and the megalopolis, etc. The next classification is megalopolis. Now, megalopolis is also called as a megacity. The term megacity is coined by Gene Gottman in 1957. It's a very large conurbation with two or more large cities, very large cities merged together. Usually, megalopolis has a population of more than 10 million. In some cases, it is considered as more than 8 million, but more than 10 million is what usually considered. And great examples we have is the Mumbai metropolitan region. Overall population is of 18 million. Delhi metropolitan region with a population of 16 million, while Kolkata metropolitan region with a population of 14 million. These are all megalopolis. So it includes the one metropolis, that is Mumbai, Delhi, Kolkata, and then many other towns and cities located around it. So that is called as a megalopolis. These are the world's megacities currently, and also those megacities which are going to grow further in coming decades. So these are world's top 15 megacities. So starting from the west, we have Los Angeles, we have Mexico City, Sao Paulo, Buenos Aires, Rio de Janeiro or New York. Then we have Mumbai, Calcutta, New Delhi. They are from India. We also have Karachi from Pakistan, Dhaka from Bangladesh, and to far east we have Manila, Shanghai, Tokyo is the largest city, largest mega city of the world with 37 million population, and it is expected to grow by 5% in coming decades. And obviously Beijing in China. So these are all world's top mega cities. So these have got a population of more than 10 millions. So I hope you understood this particular session. In this session, we talked about how settlements can be classified on the basis of population size. First, we started with rural settlement category. So we started with an isolated settlement, then hamlet, and small and large village. So these were first three categories based on size. All these three categories belong to rural settlement. Then we talked about the fourth category as towns. It is from this point where the urban settlement classification begins. Towns, we talked about census towns, statutory towns. Then we talked about cities. Then we talked about metropolis or metropolitan, and then urban agglomeration that included metropolitan areas. And lastly, we talked about megalopolis or mega cities. So this is about the classification of settlements based on size. So hope you have understood, and again, if you have any queries, please get in touch with me. Thanks a lot.